Thursday the 1st of September, and welcome to From the South. In Caracas, tens of thousands of protesters hit the streets, both for and against the government today. The opposition march was very big. Demonstrators were dressed in white and marched to demand a referendum to remove President Nicolas Maduro. The organisers dubbed the rally Take Over Caracas, and some prominent opposition figures had suggested that if the referendum couldn't be held this year, then the march could potentially turn violent. Our correspondent Cody Weddle was in the march.
Currently joining you from the Francisco Fajardo Highway here in Caracas. One of the main stages of the opposition's protest is located just a few yards from here. A lot of those protesters have moved here. They've come over here to the highway. They've actually shut down both sides of the highway. Now there are police here, but there haven't been any conflicts. The police and some military members allowed them to shut down both sides of the highway. Hard to tell how many people have turned out here. We'll know, of course, when we see some aerial shots, but from here on the ground, it does look like a very significant turnout for the opposition here today in Caracas. Cody Weddle, teleSur's, Caracas, Venezuela.
Across the city, pro-government supporters amassed in support of President Maduro. Maduro spoke to the crowds and announced that a new decree was in the works to get rid of the immunity for politicians who want to attempt coups. Maduro had said that the opposition rally is intended to disguise a coup, similar to the 2002 attempt to overthrow then-President Hugo Chavez. A Peruvian court has today sentenced former army personnel to jail for the massacre of peasants 31 years ago in Ayacucho. The army officers and soldiers were sentenced to between 10 and 25 years in prison. They were found guilty of murdering 71 peasants, including 23 children. This was at the height of the conflict between the government and the Shining Path group. One person has been arrested and several children injured after a squatters' camp was raided in northern Peru on Wednesday. Police used tear gas to disperse the crowds, which also saw the firing of pellet guns and thrown bottles against the security forces. The Aboplatil camp was evicted because it was on the property of a private firm. An unexpected explosion occurred during the test firing of one of NASA's rockets at the SpaceX launch site at Cape Canaveral, Florida on Thursday. The Falcon 9 rocket belonged to Elon Musk's SpaceX, which reportedly destroyed Facebook's Internet.org satellite. Donald Trump, on his return to the United States, following his meeting with Mexican President Peña Nieto, attempted to put a positive spin on his trip. He insisted that they both shared the desire to secure their borders, and Trump drew raucous applause and cheers from the crowd after he guaranteed that Mexico would pay for the wall. However, following the meeting, the Mexican president blasted Trump, calling him a threat to Mexico. Gabon's re-elected president, Ali Bongo Ondimba, addressed his people after violence hit the streets of the Central African country. This followed his victory, which was heavily disputed by the opposition, which led to 2 days of violence. Ali Bongo praised the military for containing the unrest, which saw 3 people killed and over 1,000 arrested. A group of protesters gathered in Berlin to demand a halt to NATO's expansion on Thursday. The protesters called for peace between Europe and Russia, stating that only then can there be peace in the West. They held up banners and placards saying, "No US/NATO criminal wars or superpower politics," and ban the export of military equipment.
Israeli authorities on Wednesday approved the plans for the construction of 463 new homes for Jewish settlers in various settlements in the occupied West Bank. The watchdog group Peace Now reported, prompting a swift condemnation from the White House. The approvals involved 20 new housing units in the Gav Zeyav settlement and 30 in Beit Arei. 179 housing units were retroactively approved in Ofarim. Peace Now added that plans for the construction of 234 more units in the settlement of Ilkana were also being discussed.
During the past 2 months, Israel has approved more than 1,700 housing units in East Jerusalem and the West Bank. This will absolutely spring more clashes between civilians and citizens. There, we're talking about hundreds of Palestinian families who will be either displaced or bullied by Israeli settlers. Under international law, this policy of Israel is illegal. We call on the international community, including the UN, and the Quartet to push on Israel to halt its policy of illegal settlement and displacing people throughout the West Bank and the East Jerusalem.
The UN coordinator for the Middle East peace process, Nikolai Mildinov, told the Security Council on Monday that Israeli settlement expansion had dramatically surged over the past 2 months, since a key report called for a halt. According to Peace Now, Israel has promoted plans for 2,623 new units in West Bank settlements since the beginning of the year. Settlements are considered illegal under international law and major obstacles to peace, as they are built on land Palestinians see as part of their future state. Nur Harazin, teleSur's TV, Gaza.
Teams across South America are gearing up to face each other in the 2018 World Cup qualifiers. Ecuador hosts Brazil at Quito's Estadio Olímpico Atahualpa, whilst Venezuela crossed the border to battle Colombia. For more on these and other stories, visit us on telesur.net/English.